Good evening, this is Pineleaf Needles, and welcome to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. And tonight we have with us Atheros,
Hey.
Raxwolf,
Hello again, Lotro.
Andang,
Hey, everybody.
and Sithrith.
Hello.
In addition, we have a special guest tonight, so everyone please welcome Bragg, son of Balin.
Good evening, LOTRO players. Thank you.
Hello, Bragg. Now I'd like you to participate in our traditional initiation for our guests, and that is to please tell us what got you started in LOTRO and in the LOTRO and podcasting communities.
Initiation, that sounds dangerous. Thank you, sir. May I have another? I've been playing LOTRO since a bit before Mori came out, maybe 6 months before Mori came out. So I don't know, what is that, 5.5 years, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, and so obviously been a big fan of the show since you guys took up the torch from CSTM. I've been thinking about starting a podcast for a long time, just because I enjoyed so much interacting with all the other, wonderful people in the community out there. Really just the only barrier was figuring out finding the time and finding out technically how to set up all the rigmarole you got to get through to get out there and start participating. So I do have a webpage out there called lightthebeacons.com now, and I think I'm on episode 12 as of last week. So I don't know. It's more than an exception at this point. It's a trend, and hopefully if anyone's listening, it'll continue.
Yeah, and I have to say, especially in like the last two episodes, I think you've really started to hit your stride. You've had some really good discussion topics in the last two episodes, and I've really, really enjoyed the podcast as a whole. And I hope everyone goes over and gives a listen because it's a fantastic podcast, and LOTRO really needs more podcasts because it feels like over the last few months we've just kind of been losing podcasts or losing hosts off of podcasts for LOTRO. So it's great to see you kind of starting up your own podcast.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm trying to do a little something different from everybody else, and just kind of week to week try different segments and see how they work out. Look at people's feedback and hopefully inject some humor into the proceedings here and there. Sometimes we take ourselves a little too seriously, and I am a dwarf, so if nothing else, I'm amusing myself. But thanks for having me tonight. This is really, I don't want to say an honor. That's a little bit too much, but it's a privilege.
Yeah. Don't go too far.
All right, very well, thank you. And we'll now go into the game news, and there isn't much because it involves a quick YouTube video where the turbine employees dump themselves with cold water.
For a good cause.
Yeah, they
All
just do
right.
it for no reason.
At the request of the community.
Yeah, we're gonna freeze ourselves in order to help benefit those who are suffering from ALS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is timely. My wife and daughter just did this evening about a half an hour ago out in my backyard, so it's really spreading around through social media very quickly.
Yeah, and I know Sapiens was the one that challenged Turbine, I believe, and so it seems like that him at his new job that he's in at not Child's Play, but the other one, can't even think of it now.
Children's Miracle Network.
Children's Miracle Network. Thank you. At his new job, he definitely seems to really be into trying to promote things against diseases and help out all sorts of children in need and things like that. And so it definitely seems like that it's a great fit, and he's really doing a great job. And it's cool that he's able to have that kind of effect on Turbine and having them all do that type of a challenge. I thought that was pretty cool.
All right, very well. Anyone else have anything to add on this matter?
Nope.
Then we will head into the store sales. Sithrith, could you speak of the store sales for this week since Drac isn't here?
Sure. So the free sample of the week for August 15th through the 21st is a Slayer Deed Accelerator for 60 minutes. It is a one-use coupon code of SD860, and that is one per account. Again, that is SD860. So
I believe he put it in the show
Yeah.
notes at least. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes. And also like Slayer Deed Accelerator, 60 minutes. So it's pretty easy to remember.
Mhm.
So then 30% off sales this week are our favorite sales. Legendary item stuff. Legendary slot
Whoop-de-doo.
unlock. Legacy tier upgrades, legacies, scroll of combination, relic removal scroll, and a universal solvent, which is not legendary item related, but most of it is. And so I'm so thrilled. Additionally, this weekend, August 15th to 17th, there's an increased drop rate of loot boxes throughout Middle-earth. So if you've been looking for some loot boxes, get out there, maybe work on some Slayer deeds, and get your loot boxes. I know I've gotten quite a few this weekend already.
All right, thank you, Citrus. And I'm sure you're still wishing for a cosmetic sale of some sort in the future.
As always.
As always. Well, that's all our game news. So we'll head into the site news for this week, and we'll begin with a 60-day VIP code giveaway. And what is this all about? And Dane?
Yes, Pineleaf. Basically, my Patreon supporters helped make it possible for me to be able to do a 60-day VIP code giveaway, and all anybody has to do, as is kind of normal, is you just have to leave a comment on the YouTube video. Don't leave a comment on the article like you did in the past. Just leave a comment on the YouTube video and pick a winner randomly. And that winner will basically be the one who wins it if they respond in after a week's time. So pretty exciting. You have until the 25th of August, I believe. I think that's on Monday. So somewhere around there, the contest will end. It's in the article when the contest ends. But definitely excited to be giving away. It seems like people have had a lot of interest in it. It got a ton of retweets on Twitter and already has over like 1,000 views. So that's by far like our most popular giveaway ever. So people seem to really like the VIP code.
Very well.
And
And
is this the one that you have to comment on the YouTube page? Just to clarify?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Because I saw some people commenting in the post, and that's not going to enter you, right?
Correct. It will not. To be fair, you have to abide by the rules that were stated in the YouTube video that you have to enter there. And it also says in the article that you can't leave comments there either. I mean, you can, but they won't count as entry.
they won't count as entries, yes. Right. And you have until August 25th in order to enter into this contest. And you also had a poll up. What was that all
Yes,
about?
Pineleaf, we did have a poll up. It is, have you read a book by Tolkien? And I'm not asking you, Pineleaf, because obviously you've read a ton of books by Tolkien, I'm sure. I actually re-listened to an older episode today where you talked about writing papers and giving presentations about Tolkien stuff. So clearly you have read books by Tolkien, but we wanted to know what the community did, and apparently 95% are in the same boat as you, Pineleaf, where they have read a book by Tolkien as well. 2% said not all the way through, with 4 votes. 2% said no, and 1%, just because they thought it would be funny, said who? So, yeah, that was definitely a funny answer.
Yeah, that sounds like an unusual one.
All right.
So I have a recommendation on this. A book that not many of you may have heard of. At least I hadn't heard of it until a year or two ago. It's kind of a more obscure work by Tolkien. For those who have kids, there's a published book out there called Letters from Father Christmas. Have any of you guys ever heard of that one?
Just barely heard of it.
It's a collection of letters that Tolkien wrote his children as they were growing up. illustrated with pictures of Father Christmas in the North Pole and his hijinks with a polar bear and a number of other folks. And it's written in. If you've seen Tolkien, he has that particular script that he writes with the squiggly letters and so forth. And it's just got these beautiful illustrations all over the letters, pictures that he's kind of illustrating in the stories he's telling his kids. It is really, really something else. It's so different from anywhere else in his work, but kind of highlights a whole different side of him. So, if you have young children, or if you're just a Tolkien fan in general, I got a great kick out of checking that out.
Yeah,
You're
that's
saying totally different from anything else he's done? You mean even completely different from something like Farmer Giles or something like that?
Yeah, I would say so. Just because it's so personal.
Okay.
He's addressing his children specifically and saying, I heard you broke your arm playing soccer, and I have a funny story to tell you about something that happened with the elves up here. Old man
Okay.
Polar Bear was getting up into trouble. It's just a very different side of him, I think.
that's really surprising that there's actually illustrations by Tolkien throughout. There are in like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and things like that, but they're not too common. So that's pretty cool that that's
Oh,
in
he
there as
was
well.
amazingly talented,
Mhm.
as you know. Beyond just his writing. So yeah, it's very different. Check it out.
Very well. So we'll move then from a poll to cosmetics. Sithrith, what is your outfit for the week?
This week is an outfit called Beornling, and this is the first outfit that was helped created by my live stream chat room. I started live streaming my outfit creation on Hitbox, and I had quite a few people in the chat room talking with me while I made this outfit and helped me tweak the outfit to be extra cute. It is a hobbit outfit for a hobbit that wants to be a Beorning but can't because they're hobbits, and Turbine has said that only race of man characters will be able to be Beornings. But that doesn't stop hobbits from dreaming, so this is a little teddy bear outfit, basically. And I think it's adorable.
They're already hairy, so I mean, how much fur do you need to put on them at that point?
Yeah.
Well, actually, this picture looks like he's wearing boots.
Yeah, the hobbit is wearing boots. There was a whole discussion I had in the chat about why I don't like not wearing shoes for hobbits.
Yeah.
It's because of the pants.
Yeah. Maybe you should have been wearing in the background. You should have had them playing Teddy Bear's Picnic or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a fantastic outfit, Sithith. I really enjoyed watching you create it on your stream, which happens every Sunday, right?
Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern at hitbox.tv/Sithrith.
I enjoyed watching it, and it was a fantastic article and video as well, so great job. And I think this is my favorite outfit that you've made so far. It's just so funny to see a hobbit as a Beorning.
It is a pretty funny outfit.
Right. Very well. Next, we'll go into the 5th edition for the Family Line, Part 5, A Warrior of Great Renown, which is one of the series we have in our fan fiction series over at LOTRO Players. Any comments on this?
It continues to be good.
It continues to be amazing, if that's what you're looking for, finally. It's an awesome series. And once again, it is the series that goes through Rohan, which we don't see very often, those Rohan roleplays.
All right, very well. And Andang, what about this video highlight?
Yes, well, this week the video highlight is actually a kinship trailer, but what actually makes it cool is it's probably the most epic trailer for the Shire ever. It just uses words that pop up on the screen, but it's very hard to describe, but it's actually, I think, a really fantastic trailer. And if you're curious about seeing epic Hobbit trailers, then I'd definitely recommend checking this out. And I think the kinship's still around, so if you're interested in finding a kinship, this is a good place to find I think they're more of a role-playing kinship. It's a good place to find that as well.
Very well. And next, ER Grove Mary Belly has completed the series on the Necromancer, though never fear, we'll learn more about the lore of Middle-earth in the next series that they'll be beginning.
Yeah, I read this series also with a lot of interest. I had an exchange with LOTRO on the comments where I was doing some searching in the backgrounds of the Nazgul out there and found some references to more detail. That what I found out is it's not canon; it's left over from old RPG Lord of the Rings games. But they really built out a number of different storylines that kind of are tied into Tolkien's geography, including one female Nazgul, which I'd never heard before. That was an interesting twist.
That was in a Tolkien game? Wow.
Yeah, apparently. It was some kind of old RPG where they really built out kind of the lore around it. Talking most of the Nazgul, 3 were Numenorian apparently. That is from fact, I believe, and then the rest of them came, kind of from the Haradrim and the Easterlings, all south and east of Mordor. According to but there's no detail about who they are and so forth. And this RPG had built out backstories behind all of them, including one female Nazgul that was apparently a pretty nasty customer. So I thought that was interesting.
All right, but I thought that they were given to kings.
Kings of Men, 9 kings of men, according to the movie, right? So, yeah.
Right, that's the way you usually hear it.
I think they took some liberties, obviously, but it's still an interesting twist.
Liberties and.
But there's a lot of detail out there. So someone did some research and really tied it closely into actual clues and tips from Tolkien about the races that Sauron subjugated.
Awesome.
Interesting stuff. Yeah.
All right, very well. And we go from the Nazgul up to the Shire with small LOTRO adventures where Lizzie goes on looking for apples. It'd be nice if Lily Kate was able to hear a comment on that on herself.
Yeah, I actually
in the chat soon.
I actually watched through this, and it was a absolutely fantastic. Again, seeing the dynamic between Lily Kate and Lizzie, and I really enjoy watching their videos each and every time, and they have more adventures, as you can imagine.
Right. So they will continue on that, and also with Lily Kate, she has a new musical news with the Buggis's Band's Guild Launch site, which is where she's going to be hosting her bands on Guild Launch. She used to be at a different site for this, but now she's decided to bring all her bands together at a site for the Buggises, and I just got my account there because since I'm a member of the orchestra there.
Right.
And in fact, we had a performance today with the orchestra. I don't know, is that actually in here? No article on that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think she might get around to that later. It sounded like.
All right, very well. I'm sure she'll have a nice article on that. Hopefully she thought it was some nice music.
I'm sure that she probably did, but I can't speak for her, Pineleaf, because she might not like your music. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. We'll see what happens if she decides that she doesn't want to hear me play the harp again or something like that.
She will confiscate. She'll confiscate your harp and not let you play.
Confiscate my harp.
Knowing her, she'll pretend to like it to be polite.
Yeah, that's much more likely.
Okay, she's also waiting for some screenshots before she writes the article. I guess that's logical. Now, LOTRO Players Adventures, episode 27, Dwarf and Boromir. Boy, I really wish we knew where we got that one from. No.
Boromir.
Yeah, Boromir, yes.
That was a crazy episode. It was also at a different time, and it made the episode much crazier. We tried two of the Moria instances. One of them, one group failed, and the other group actually went on to do a whole nother instance. So it was a lot of fun, and if you're interested, be sure to check it out.
Look, you guys got to start writing down what these titles come from, because this is just too tantalizing to not to get the detail.
Well,
First
that's
of all,
why you got to go.
None of you are dwarves, right? Are any of you dwarves? I thought you all hated dwarves.
Sprydra's a dwarf.
Sprydra's a dwarf, but Bragg,
Yes.
that's why you have to go over to
I see.
I think
LOTROplayers.com.
what happened was someone was getting shot full of arrows, and then someone made the comment of being like a dwarven Boromir.
Yeah, that basically somebody was getting shot with a ton of arrows, and so they were Dwarven Boromir.
Dwarvamir.
Dwarvamir.
Endang, my captain, my king,
Oh no, no.
into the vile maw.
And it was very vile.
Very vile indeed, yes. Next, we have our weekly poem by Estella Lee, and in fact, this week's poem is called Estelle because it is about Aragorn and Arwen. They called me Estelle when I was young. Its meaning is hope in the Elvish tongue. My mother and I were brought to Rivendell to hide from the enemy, to live there and dwell. I grew up learning the history of lore of mighty elves and Beleriand and more. I fell in love with stories. I read the lay of Lethien, stories of my elders, my kin, of Beren and Luthien. I cried for children of Hurin, their trials and choices of Turin. As I learned more about the Silmarils and powerful rings, I often wondered about my place in the grand scheme of things. I learned about Elendil the Tall and of Isildur, his rise and fall. I learned about the corruption and weakness of men, and because of men, the One Ring wasn't destroyed then. I was lost in my thoughts and missed a vision that Tenuvio came. I got up and ran after her, enchanted, calling her name. Mesmerized, charmed, entranced, captivated by a spell. She asked me why do I call her that, for she is Undomiel. The even star of her people, Arwen, daughter of Elrond. Her eyes met and we traveled through space, time, and beyond. Then reality dawned on me. I was being too blind to see. She was an Eldar. Her stature was high. I, a mortal man, doomed to die.
Yay, Pineleaf, that was awesome.
That's weighty stuff.
And
You've been taking acting classes, haven't you? Because the drama is just getting ramped up week to week, I got to say.
I think so.
No,
Voice actor.
Yeah.
no, not acting classes, just my storytelling at Toastmasters clubs.
He's already voicing the orcs.
And and also the your YouTube channel as well, I think probably helps with that too. But yeah, it is getting better and better each time, and I'm excited to see the poems each week from Estelle Lee. Thanks again for this weekly article. I really do enjoy it, and it's awesome to be able to have weekly poems on LOTRO Players. I really do enjoy that.
All right. Now, Andang, you concluded your Western Gondor series finally?
Yeah, this one didn't take as long as I thought it would. I was surprised that it was only 27 episodes this time. That's half of the length of my Wildermore series, essentially. And yet, it felt like that it was maybe more as far as quest numbers go, but because of the way that the quest structure is designed, I think that it flows obnoxiously quicker and actually gets you through the content way quicker than I expected. It almost felt a little rushed, I think, as far as how fast we were going.
Maybe you
You did,
edited
I
it
think-
more?
Yeah, I think I was going to say that. I think you kind of I think you edited a lot of the needless travel out of the videos a lot more than you did with Wildemore.
I did, but
Mhm.
that's partly because Wildermore was so close together. And whereas this is, stretched out over more zones. But yeah, that is true as well.
And now I noticed that my series is 39, though I think I just posted around 31 so far, I believe.
Okay.
So I'm not quite done with mine
Hmm.
yet.
Yeah. I think even with all the stuff I cut out in there, I think it'd still probably be shorter than the Wildermore series. So thought that was kind of interesting.
All right, very well. Now we'll head into Brax. What is the story of the week?
Hey guys, did you miss me?
Yes, we did. Where have you been, Brax?
I haven't had a pick
Mordor,
for
apparently.
a while. You would think with like almost 3 weeks worth of stuff to pick from, I wouldn't have to wait till today for Massively to release an article for the Road to Mordor, but I
That
did.
that sounds like a you problem, not an us problem.
It's very much it's very much my problem. Yeah, so I picked Sip's article that he does for the Road to Mordor, and today it was called "Has LOTRO Grown Too Big for Its Own Good?" And there was a couple reasons that I thought this was a really interesting piece today. One of them was because of the overall arching question, which is LOTRO too big for its own good? Has it become too successful to continue to bring in new players? Because now when people are looking for MMOs to play, perhaps they've never played one before, or perhaps they're just looking for a new one to start. Is LOTRO even a viable option? Because you look at it and it's so big and complex. There's so many levels. There's so many different systems to learn. There's so many different ways that you can progress. Is a new player going to want to get into all that, knowing that A, there's all that in front of them, and B, the game is already X number of years old? And there's always the question in the back of somebody's mind when they're starting an older game, how much longer is it going to be around, and am I going to have time to finish it off? Now, I'm not suggesting that LOTRO is in trouble, but that's when somebody's not familiar with the game, that's something that goes through their mind. So that was one thing that I thought was interesting, just that question in general, and I think we may even have discussed it on one of Ethelrose's questions at one point. But the other thing that I thought was good about this article was SIP goes through several ways that players just starting the game or players starting an alt over from level 1 can actually kind of make the process flow quicker. He talks about various options you have as far as Slayer boosts and XP boosts, and he talks about the way to level your virtues. Talks about the get to the Valor, even though he doesn't really recommend it, and he goes through a couple of ways that he would like to see the game help people progress even better again. So from a new player's perspective, there's a few tips in there for what they could do to actually start playing the game, knowing that all this is in front of them and that they can make it even a more streamlined experience and continue to enjoy it. And then for existing players, there's always that question of just kind of to roll over and talk amongst your friends, as we all do on the forums and in our guild chat and stuff. Is LOTRO too big and too old for its own good? Are we going to be able to continue to take on new players and continue to make the game successful through that means?
I think there's a real opportunity here coming up for new players when the Bjorning gets released. All you need to do is create a mini called Goldilocks, and you're going to have 3 bears in every fellowship.
Yeah.
A mini called Goldilocks.
I like it.
Well, the first trick is getting a character called Goldilocks, since I'm sure the name's been taken already by several people.
X, 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 X.
Yeah, lots of different spellings.
Yes,
But
and that's assuming the name is even allowed, because they said, "I'm sorry, it's the name of one of Sam Ganji's daughters. You can't have it." Even though they allow Rosie.
But yeah, I think this is kind of like a problem that a lot of older MMOs end up facing at some point or another. It's like kind of an unavoidable thing that has no clear solution. It's just, it ends up getting big because they're constantly building layers on top of it, and you end up with a very sizable MMO cake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's probably true with any living game.
Yeah, but I think especially with MMOs because they are constantly in development. They're constantly either adding new stuff, changing stuff that was already being done before, or even occasionally removing things. I think for LOTRO there really isn't so much that they could do about it. I suppose like they kind of have streamlined some of the lower level content to make it easier to go through for new players and alts. But I think short of that, there isn't a whole lot they could do. The Gift of the Valor, I suppose, is one kind of stopgap measure they did come up with. Obviously, it's very expensive though, and it's not really a viable option for continuous leveling.
Well, they did do the revamp of the North Downs, the Troll Shawls, and the Misty Mountains. And the Troll Shawls and the Misty Mountains revamp does take care of one of the areas where leveling was a little bit on the shaky side.
Hmm. SIP does make actually a couple of suggestions that for what Turbine could do to make this easier. One thing he comes up with is progression servers, which I believe is creating its own server that's kind of at an earlier point in the game, which I think we've talked about before. But instead of keeping it at that point, say Shadows of Vangmore, Mines of Moria, and the common ones, it starts off at that point, then gradually has the content that's already been released added onto it over time. That way, people don't feel like they've missed out on a whole chunk of content being released. They can go at that pace.
I don't think that's technologically possible for them.
Well, they did for a while. They were when you logged in first to the game, they were giving you a recommended server to join. If they focused new players into one server, then they could have kind of a more standard LOTRO experience, from that server. It's possible. Or maybe after they could just reset everybody to level 1 for the Scouring of the Shire, make you start over.
Prestige
I would
mode.
not be visiting forums after that. But yeah, it's a interesting thought, I guess. I'm just not really convinced that the expense for a kind of server of that amount of change, if they even have the possibility to do it, assuming they have the old code, I'm just not sure the expense would be worth what you'd get out of it, or what they'd get out of it.
And the logistics of it I think, would be a nightmare, because it's very easy for things to go wrong if you try to maintain that.
Yeah. He also makes the suggestion of trying to connect players more, and I think he suggests a patron or mentor program. I don't know if this is very common in other MMOs. I haven't really experienced them too much, but do you think that would really help people sort of get into this, like new players getting into this rather intimidating size of a game?
Does anybody know what that means?
I think that means that it sounds like to me having people pair up with someone who's more experienced in the game and help.
Yeah.
So I hope some people don't interpret that as power leveling, because I wouldn't want it to be anything like that.
Because I've heard people talk about
together.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about that, but I've never really been sure. I've never seen it in action, so I'm not exactly sure what it looks like. I don't know if that's just an informal relationship, or if there's actually technology put into the game to help people foster those kinds of relationships.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, because if it's informal, then how's it going to be different from what sometimes happens today when someone introduces someone to the game?
Yeah, I think the most they could really do, I think, for Turbine is just sort of encourage it via media and such things like that. Really,
right?
Short of that, I don't see much coming of it.
All right, very well. Now we'll head into the news beyond the LOTRO, and we'll begin with a trailer. Andang, what's happening with the Shadow of Mordor?
Yes, well, essentially they lined out the villains that we will probably be able to actually fight and hopefully take down. Because obviously we're not going to be able to take down Sauron, we hope, in the game, because that would be pretty lore-breaking. As if they actually care about lore-breaking. But anyway, it does It is a really cool trailer just from a cinematography point of view. And if you are interested in this game, it does kind of set up what each of these three main head villains have done. And I was reading an article on IGN, and basically there's the Nemesis system, and then there's these other like fixed story characters that have a set story that they're telling. And these characters fall into that. So they're actually, the Nemesis system does not apply to them because apparently they have such a good story that they don't need it. But it is pretty cool that we now know that they're not just like having you go up against Sauron, you're actually going to be taking on some of these other characters as well. So, interesting things coming.
I saw in the trailer at one point they have represented an explosion from Mount Doom, which is kind of a neat concept. Don't know whether that's tied into dealing some blow against Sauron or not, but we know there's a physical connection between the two in some form or fashion due to the forging of the ring. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of a sign that his power is kind of coming back, where now he is able to actually control the landscape, because that's in the or not control, but be tied with the landscape. That's kind of in the books. I think around this time they say he starts to regain his power in one of the appendices or something like that. So.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to intuit that, and the big draw for me in this game is really seeing Mordor built out in all its glory and being able to explore it in depth. I mean, that's just. I'm so hoping that they'll let us, in there when we get there in LOTRO to really explore. Obviously, we're going to be dogging Sam and Frodo's footsteps. They can't know we're there, but I have a feeling we're going to be trolling around the landscape in there. So hopefully, maybe they can take some clues about what's been done in this game and either improve or expand upon it. Hopefully, it'll be as tied as closely to whatever details in the lore as possible.
Yeah, I mean,
about the landscape.
Mordor isn't all just a barren wasteland as film Boromir would have you believe. It actually does have not necessarily, I don't know if it mentions in the books that there's plant life, but there is definitely a lake, and the orcs have to be getting some kind of food from somewhere, which is probably the animals, and they have to be getting some type of
Don't minimize it. It's a sea.
Nutrition.
It's not a lake.
Yeah,
it is. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah.
But
it is mentioned in one of the appendices, yeah.
It's meant to have fertile farmland of some kind.
Because that's where they're
Around
getting
the
a lot of their food and stuff, so.
Can't all be sulfur and brimstone. Come on.
That's right. You have to feed the orcs somehow.
Right.
But the Shire, that wouldn't be good farmland. We should just turn that into a barren wasteland,
Well, it's too far from Mordor.
Yeah, there's logistics, shipping there to the data warehouses and so forth. It's just way too much. The shipping lanes.
Very well. Now, speaking of Mordor, as people have often noted, they have said that the perfect solution for getting to Mordor would have been to fly in through the Eagles. Well, Brotherhood Workshop had posted their rebuttal on this contention on why you had to walk into Mordor instead of using eagles. And it's a wonderful video, and I suggest everybody watch it.
Pineleaf doesn't normally do that, so that means that this is like head and shoulders, knees and toes above any other content that has come on LOTRO players. Wow, that's quite the praise, Pineleaf. This is definitely I'm glad that we finally have a visual representation as to why it would be a terrible idea to take the Eagles to Mordor. The main obvious reason is that, obviously the Eagles are not a taxi service, followed close by the fact that there's all sorts of fell beasts and drakes and all sorts of who knows what else that Sauron probably has under his control in Mordor. And then not to mention fire arrows from orcs. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you would not want to take the Eagles to Mordor, and so I'm glad that somebody finally decided to visually represent just that.
Yes. In addition to this, he also posted, though it's not in the article, his explanation on how he made the video. And it was quite a lengthy step and process because it's a very complicated video in order to make since it's done with Legos. And speaking of movies, we have The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug is coming out in an extended edition. Sithrith, what about this?
Yes, the extended edition of the second Hobbit movie, The Desolation of Smaug, will be coming out on Blu-ray and 3D Blu-ray on November 4th. And there'll be a link in the show notes, but there's also a video that they included with one of those extended clips that got cut from the theatrical version of the movie. So if you're into that kind of stuff, that's coming out November 4th.
All right, thank you very much. And that's our news beyond LOTRO. So now we'll head into donations. Yes, we do have a donation this week. So a big thanks to Bavel Bella for a $10 or more donation to LOTRO players. Hi, this is Bavel Bella. I donated $10. I listen and watch mainly your news and adventures and visit the site often. From your podcast, I learned about Weatherstock and LMB, and now I am a member.
Yay.
That's
I'm
awesome.
sure all the yes, congratulations. And if you want to help LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can help support the podcast of LOTRO players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions where you can donate and get a mention on one or all of our active podcasts for an episode depending on the amount. For $5, you get a mention on the podcast of your choice. For $10 or more, you get a mention on all of our active podcasts. And we also have some feedback this week. A review, a 5-star review on iTunes done by Brownuser, a jewel in the LOTRO online community. I started listening to LPN after CSTM went offline. LPN provides the LOTRO online community an indispensable resource for YouTube videos, news, beta previews, reviews, etc. LPN is a real gem in the LOTRO online community.
Wow, thank you very much, Bronger.
Bronger, okay. Thank
Is a
you.
gem the same as a
There's-
jewel?
I'm not
Sure.
concerned. It's shiny.
How come you guys never read the 1-star reviews, just the 5-star ones?
Because we don't get any 1-stars yet. Hopefully we won't.
Okay, sure you
Right. Right. Oh, we just got a 1-star review from
From Bragg, son of Balin. Who's that guy?
Who's this guest host you have? He stinks. 1 star.
This guest host is awesome. I'm actually giving you 6 stars out of 5 on iTunes. Man, that is amazing.
So that one was just a carryover.
It was just a
Yeah.
carryover.
Plus
just a
exactly.
carryover.
Stick it to the
Extra
mathematics.
star. Very well. We also have a featured comment from Flosson, who left a comment about the class tavern fight poll. Oh, wait! I changed my mind. The hunter yells, "Hey!" and shoves the captain. The captain quickly reaches for his banner with the intent of slamming it down. But in the process, he snags the guardian and warden by the crossbow and spear, causing them to topple over. The runekeeper gives out a hearty laugh at them. The warden reaches for her spear and sweeps the runekeeper right off his feet. The captain tries to get to his feet, but the hunter tackles him down to the ground again. By this time, the guardian has gotten to his feet again. The champion, seeing an opening, charges the guardian. Ching, ching! But the guardian was too quick in evading the advance. The champion plowed straight into a new keg and shattered it. Ale sprayed all over the place and all over the Bjorning.
Oh no.
This ticked off the Bjorning,
Everyone
standing
started
up
being the
and towering over the champion and says, "Do you know how long it took me to get all that orc filth off of me?" Ale start drinking, not wearing. She grabs the champion and guardian and flings them into the rest of them. The lore master summons an Ent. The Ent yells out, I am Groot, slamming his foot down and shaking everyone to the floor.
That's awesome.
Everyone starts to get back to their feet after a moment. A smirk appears on the lore master's face. Sick 'em, he says, and all his animal friends to charging after the others. They quickly surrender before any harm comes to them. The lore master calls off his animal. But he didn't see the minstrel coming behind him. Wham! To the side of the head with the theobo, sending the lore master to the floor. The minstrel didn't realize that there was ale all over the floor by this time. The force of the swing also caused her to slip and slam on the floor.
That was really well thought out.
After a couple of minutes, everyone looked up, hearing a wonderful chuckle. I guess that means I won the last piece of pie, says the burglar between bites. But we're a team, a fellowship. I want to share the fun with all of you. Did you see these? Pointing to some pies, 3 very large pies that any hobbit in finishing in one sitting. Well, that sentence seemed a little strange there.
Any hobbit can finish in one sitting.
He didn't have the word can, and the fact that he said they're very large ones, I thought it would be more likely to say that even a hobbit couldn't finish in one sitting, which is...
Oh, my immersion is broken, Pineleaf.
Yes, Pineleaf, you were doing so good.
You have to interpret. Keep going.
Everyone yells, for the fellowship, as they raise their mugs. Everyone ends up winning.
Everyone ends up winning. Continue, Pineleaf.
Well, that's not what it says in the show notes.
Keep reading, Pineleaf.
In the shadows.
He will read absolutely anything that appears on that teleprompter.
As in the shadows, a dark figure has been watching the whole scene. He lets out a quiet cackle. Just wait and see what I have coming up against you, says Rook, the wizard.
That was
Rook.
awesome.
Oh, Rook.
Oh, poor Rook.
Thank you so much, Flossin, for sitting that in. That is the best possible outcome of that bar fight that I think could happen. That's hilarious. And thank you,
I don't think we've
Pineleaf,
seen the last.
for reading that.
That's what the interlude in the Dead Marshes is going to be about. We run to Rook again.
I don't think we've seen the last of Rook. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I like the Groot reference for the end. That's great.
indeed. That was awesome.
Very well. Makia of Mirkwood left a comment on last week's sped up blooper video. I am laughing so hard there are tears. This is absolutely priceless. Thank you for this. Zinger left a comment on last.
Oh, we're gonna skip Lily Kate's comment.
It has to be said.
It has to be said,
Tiny
Pineleaf.
You almost have to read it, though.
I didn't think there was any need to read Lily Kate's comment
It's
there.
too funny. You
It's
can't-
highlighted
It is.
in the
It's
show
really
notes,
good.
Pineleaf.
All right, very well then. Etheros, you read it.
Well, Lillicate almost peed herself, as in PEA/-D. I don't know
Apostrophe.
what, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
It
I
makes
think
sense if
that's
you
a
watch the
pun on
bloopers.
a boat
Yeah,
of, a boat of peas, right?
A boat of peas.
A
Boat of
boat
peas.
of peas.
Citrus new symbol.
Yes,
Indeed.
That's her nation symbol.
Yep.
Zinger left a comment on last week's blooper video. Step aside, David. This is LOTRO Players After Dentist. This is not a democracy. This is a Brextatorship.
I wasn't even there.
The might of Braxopolis.
Very
Oh,
well.
my.
Brad, could you read your comment from last week?
You bet. Dear LOTRO Players team, All I can say is exactly what kind of pipe weed were you smoking during the blooper session this week? And be sure to save some for me. Oh my gosh, that was too funny. Cheers, Bragg.
Old Toby.
Yeah.
A highly evolved breed of old Toby.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, ancient Toby.
Ancient old Toby.
Granddad Toby.
Very well. And as for emails, we'll begin with another item by Bragg. I heard a rumor that you have an origin story to read.
Yes, I enjoyed the origin stories that were submitted the last couple of weeks, but I couldn't believe that no one had done one on Pineleaf yet. And I felt obligated, given my guest appearance on the podcast, to create one which I call an ode to Pineleaf. If you have your permission to read it, I promise the profanity is really low. No, it's okay. An ode to Pineleaf, and with a nod to Clement Seymour for his stylings. 'Twas the night before the podcast, when all through the server not a fellow was stirring, at least not with much fervor. The world channel lay dormant, without the usual crap, and even the Morse creeps seemed to be taking a nap. The raiders were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of first stagers danced in their heads. And I, with my archer named Legolas, had just settled down to do the icy crevasse. When out on Twitch there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my kin house to see what was the matter. Away to the chat window I flew like a flash, and nearly got killed by mobs that were trash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to the lieutenants below, when what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature warden and his sharp pointy spear. With a little old hobbit so lively and fine, I knew in a moment he had needles of pine. More abundant than LIs of his alts I had heard, and on so many servers it was almost absurd. On Landrel, Brandywine, and Gladden was he, Arkenstone, Eldar, you get the ID. With so many tunes it was almost a mania. I've heard he built his own server and called it Wardania. A podcast host was he of no little skill, who was forced to read poetry each week against his will, and rein in the antics of cohorts galore to keep things on track and also keep score. A sound mind he had of metrics and data, and he'd been playing LOTRO almost since beta. He knew everything you could know about the game, and if he was ever wrong, it was you who felt shame. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and round little cheeks, and a rather high-pitched laugh that was somewhat unique. He was hairy and short, a right jolly old took, though a filth shepherd had covered him with gobbledygook. He lifted a hope token high over his head, which gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He said, "Very well," and went straight to his work. Tanked all the encounters, then turned with a jerk. He counted his marks, which took quite a while. It seems all his skirmishing had made quite a pile. He sprang to his war steed, ran into the wall, backed up, moved sideways, and bid farewell to all. But I heard him exclaim, and he said it quite constantly, "I hope you remember to skirmish responsibly."
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
That was
That was
genius.
the best thing I've ever heard.
That was genius. Oh,
That was amazing.
oh, my
And
face hurts.
hearing Pineleaf's laugh makes it all worthwhile.
Great.
Oh, man.
All right.
We have a winner.
All right,
stop
thank
now.
you. Now, Flossin wrote an origin story for Draculetta, and we'll leave that one to Cithra to read.
Okay, hold on, I have to recover. Okay. Okay. That was amazing. And that should have gone last, because I don't think anything can really top that. Okay. So, Flossin, or that captain guy from Winfola, whatever, wrote an origin story for Draculetta. In the game, we have normal and reputation horses. In 2012, Turbine brought us War Steeds, new for 2015, proudly announcing Battle Goats, the new heavy mount in LOTRO. 13.5 meters per second top speed, tighter cornering than light steeds, plus 3 mounting points for your favorite ale. I don't know what that means. Also announcing a new encounter for Storm on Methadros. Sange, Sange,
Sanj, I
Sange,
believe it's be.
Sange, Draculetta's battle goat. Gwillian, the old lady in Methadros, has captured a Drugavar for her own dark purpose. Defeat Sange and his minions. But wait, we find out this is no ordinary Drugavar. This is Draculetta's Drugavar battle goat. Gwillian had stolen Wildfear years ago. Help reunite Sange and Draculetta. 10 years ago, Draculetta and Radagast were in Enedwaith investigating a local legend of a terrible dragon. Along the way, they had found several Kuthral fear-casters standing over 2 dead Drugavar and dragging a young and injured Drugavar up a hill. They quickly dispatched the Kuthrals and tended to the young Drugavar's wounds. It was fearful of them at first, but quickly took a liking to Draculetta. He stuck by Draculetta's side for 7 years. One evening, Sange had disappeared. There was no trace of him. Draculetta has been in search for him the last 3 years. In order to reunite Sange and Draculetta, you and your friends must use crowd control on Sange and not kill him for 5 minutes, all while killing Gwillian's waves of minions. Reward your own Drugavar battle goat. Get all the benefits of a battle goat, plus special skill Drugavar Dread. Fear to nearby foes of 20 meters causes 25% mischance, and if foes go beyond 20 meters, debuff lasts on the foe for 6 seconds. Hope you enjoy, from Flosine, Captain from Winfola.
Wee!
So that was actually a Draculetta's goat origin story. So that was
Yes.
very specialized.
I guess
That's awesome.
Sange is the Latin root for blood because he's a drac. Okay, there you go.
Right.
So that makes sense.
Yep. And by the way, if anyone's wondering where Draculetta is tonight, he needed more plasma. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yes. So that would be quite an encounter trying to save the work goat for Draculetta.
Oh wow, wow, Pineleaf, that got dark.
So we will now enter when you can contact us by emailing us at lotroflayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Cithrith at Cithrith, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Etheros at Etheros, Lilykate at Lilykate Buggins, Mystery at Mystery XOX, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, and you can follow our guest at Bragg at Bragg's son of Balin. Okay.
Yep.
And you could join us live for Lotro Players News each week at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time at lotroflayers.com. Actually, did they do this move, or did
No,
you
that's
manage to
correct,
get
Pineleaf. I just changed it.
Okay.
You can actually, I might as well mention this now. We did change our live shows a bit. We're actually no longer using YouTube because we've had so many issues with YouTube changing stuff all the time that we decided it was time to switch to something else. So we now have an audio-only broadcaster for Lotro Players News. Adventures will no longer be live, and Lotro Players News will go live through Mixler. Basically you can just go to lotroplayers.com/live, and I'll have the page all edited then and all that stuff so that you can join us in chat. So there you go.
And this live show will be each week at 8:30 p.m. server time, which is United States Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And that is it for tonight. So until next time, this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.